In the heart of Zaragoza, Spain, stands a nondescript apartment building. For most of its existence, it has been an ordinary place, home to ordinary families. But for a brief, terrifying period in 1934, it became the epicenter of one of Spain's most famous and well-documented paranormal cases. This is the story of the Duende de Zaragoza, or the Zaragoza Goblin, a case that baffled police, intrigued scientists, and terrified a nation. What makes this event so unsettling isn't just the claims of a disembodied voice, but the sheer number of credible witnesses, including police officers and investigators, who heard it with their own ears. Our story begins in September 1934 at number 2, Kale Gascon de Goder, the Palazon family, Pascuala Alcocer. Her husband Antonio and their young children lived a normal life in their second-floor apartment. Antonio worked for a construction company, and the family was well regarded by their neighbors. The building itself was relatively new, ruling out the typical old haunted house trope. There was nothing remarkable about the family or their home until the morning of September 27th. Pascuala was in her kitchen with her young maid, known only as Pascualita. Suddenly, a strange, guttural laugh seemed to erupt from the kitchen stove's flue. It was coarse and menacing. The two women were startled, but initially dismissed it as a prank or a sound from a neighbor's radio. But the sound didn't stop. It returned, this time not with a laugh, but with words. A voice, clear and distinct, began speaking from the stovepipe. It was described as raspy, intelligent, and malicious. Over the next few days, the voice became a constant tormentor. It would insult Pascuala, threaten the family, and reveal intimate details about their lives that no stranger could possibly know. It seemed to know when they were alone, what they were discussing, and even what they were thinking. The voice identified itself, claiming it was a duende, a goblin or elf from Spanish folklore. It declared, "I am not a ghost, I am here, and I will make your lives miserable." The family was terrified. They tried everything to make it stop. They called a plumber, thinking it was a strange acoustic phenomenon from the pipes. Nothing was found. They called construction workers who had built the building, including a young Miguel Angel Gascon, the son of the architect. He and his team inspected the entire building, tapping on walls, checking ventilation shafts, and looking for any hidden device. They found nothing. The voice, meanwhile, continued to mock their efforts, sometimes calling out the workers by name. Word spread quickly. Neighbors heard the voice, reporters flocked to the building, and soon all of Zaragoza was talking about the haunted apartment. The Palazon family, overwhelmed, temporarily moved out, but the voice didn't leave with them. The new tenants, a different family, fled in terror after just one night. The apartment was now empty, but the phenomenon wasn't over. The voice began to be heard in the neighboring apartment as well. The case had become a public spectacle, and the authorities had to intervene. The police, led by Inspector Diaz, sealed off the apartment. They posted guards inside and outside the building, ensuring no one could get in or out. They were determined to expose what they believed was a clever hoax. Yet, even under these controlled conditions, the voice continued. Police officers, standing alone in the sealed apartment, heard it. It taunted them, called them fools, and seemed to move around the room. It would speak from the stove, then from a corner of the ceiling, then from right beside them. The sheer number of witnesses is what elevates this case. We're not talking about one or two frightened people. We're talking about dozens, including hardened police officers, skeptical journalists, and respected architects. They all filed official reports stating they had heard a disembodied voice speaking. Intelligently from within the walls of the apartment, the investigation intensified. A judge, an architect, and a team of psychiatrists were brought in. They searched for hidden microphones, speakers, or any sign of ventriloquism. The building's plans were studied, every wall was inspected, and no rational explanation could be found. The police even cut off the electricity to the entire building, but the voice persisted. One of the most compelling accounts came from 6 construction workers who, tasked with partially demolishing the kitchen wall, were directly addressed by the voice. It laughed and told them their efforts were useless. They were so frightened that they dropped their tools and refused to continue working. Several theories were proposed. The most popular rational explanation was that of a ventriloquist prankster. Police suspected the young maid, Pascualita, might have been the source, perhaps using a hidden accomplice or her own skills. She was taken into custody and observed for several days. During her absence, the voice not only continued but seemed to grow louder and more aggressive. This effectively ruled her out as the sole perpetrator. Another theory suggested a bizarre acoustic anomaly, where sounds from a distant radio or conversation were somehow being channeled and amplified by the building as structure. However, this failed to explain the voice's interactivity. It didn't just repeat random phrases. It held real-time, intelligent conversations with the people in the room. It answered questions, made threats, and reacted to events as they happened. A third, more fringe theory pointed to the subconscious. A group of Viennese parapsychologists suggested the phenomenon was a form of telekinesis or poltergeist activity originating from the maid, Pascualita, who was entering puberty. They argued that her repressed emotional turmoil could have been unconsciously projected as the voice. This, however, remains pure speculation and doesn't account for why the voice continued when she was far away from the apartment. The police, unable to find any evidence of a hoax, eventually filed a report concluding that they could not explain the origin of the sounds. After several weeks of intense activity in early December 1934, the voice began to fade. It spoke less and less frequently, its words becoming faint and difficult to understand. Then, as suddenly as it had started, it fell silent. It was never heard again. The Palazon family, emotionally and financially drained, eventually sold the apartment and moved away, trying to escape the stigma of the haunted house. So, what was the Zaragoza Goblin? Was it a mass hallucination? An incredibly elaborate and technologically advanced hoax for 1934? Or was it, as the witnesses believed, something genuinely unexplainable? The police files were eventually closed, the official conclusion being cause unknown. The building still stands today, and new families live in the apartment on the 2nd floor, seemingly untroubled. The case of the Duende de Zaragoza leaves us with a profound sense of unease. It's a story stripped of fantasy, grounded in official police reports, judicial records, and the testimony of numerous credible and unrelated witnesses. No one was ever charged with a crime, and no rational explanation has ever been able to account for all the reported facts. The voice simply appeared, terrorized a family, baffled a city, and then vanished forever, leaving behind only a chilling, unanswered question: what was speaking from inside the walls? If you're interested in real, documented cases like this one, consider subscribing to Unnoticed Files.